welcome on into Same But Different, your weekly dose of movie reviews.
Oh, yeah.
We still don't have an intro, but that's what you're getting this week. Also, what you're getting this week is a review, too, in a violent nature.
Oh, spooky.
We're very excited to review it, and I think we should hop right in and hear what you thought of it, Derek.
Excited for this film is kind of an understatement. We got reviews from high caliber celebrities reviewing this film, so it's been making its waves. An interesting take on a very familiar genre. Those who are familiar with horror know of the 80s slasher genre, the Friday the 13th, the Halloweens. This movie is, like I said, it's making its waves through the horror community for its unique perspective, and that is, for the majority of the film, we are with the killer. Not POV, as I was led to believe. It's more so like third person.
From the killer's perspective, I think, was a misleading way of promoting this movie. It's more just in his surroundings, like whatever he can see or even hear.
Yeah, it's like an omnipresent presence who just hung out with the killer and just was just chilling. This little gimmick is cool to see, because growing up and watching slasher films even to this day, I more or less always have a fleeting thought of, wow, what is the killer up to this whole time? You know? I like the fact that there's a movie that finally answered that question for us. Well, I'm not sure I wanted that question answered after watching the movie.
Oh.
I'm going to start off with what I liked about the film. A lot of my peers have worked on this film, so it's I'm more or less walking on eggshells, but I'm trying to be fair with it, because I don't want to insult anybody. But I'm going to be honest and I'm going to be fair, and this is just my perspective. The kills, obviously. Boy, did these deliver.
Yeah.
There were some incredibly fun and unique, violent, gory kills in this film. One of them being something that I've never even thought I would ever see or imagine in my life.
Who even thinks of that? Who even thinks of that? So much respect.
Yeah, the creativity had my jaw on the floor. Yoga will never be the same. That's all I'm going to say. All practical, which is impressive as hell. There were some things in this where I'm like, how did they do? Like the log cutting scene, the guy's eyes were still moving around. Maybe that was animatronics, or maybe there was a blend of practical and kind of like magic CGI in there, but
yeah, I don't know. And the boulder on the head?
How did they do that?
I don't know.
That's the biggest, a little bit of spoilers, I guess, but you're going to get kills in this, but that was the biggest head explosion smash I've seen, I think.
Yeah.
Practical is always welcomed and appreciated, especially when it comes to violence and gore, because it just proves that whoever's working on the film really has a love and passion for the craft, and it shows, and it's nice. Cinematography was really nice, although I'm not a fan of the 4:3 ratio. It did bring a sense of retroism. And finally, it's a Canadian film. It's a Canadian film that's gaining so much attention for itself. And that's so good for Canadian filmmakers and gives hope to Canadian filmmakers. Bought by Shudder. It's going to be streaming on Shudder.
Hollywood Reporter named it number 4, I think, slasher movies of the decade.
Yeah, and I'm getting into the bad now. Unfortunately, I think this film missed a lot of marks more than it hit its marks. I was really excited to see this film because, like I said, some of the heavy hitters in the horror genre have been praising it. It was a little overhyped for me. I wish I'd gone into this movie blind. Although the perspective of the killer is new and refreshed, the perspective being with the killer. Boring, man. There were so many scenes where we're just walking with this guy through the forest forever, and he's just taking a leisurely stroll from one location to the next. Nothing happening during those times. The sound effects for the footsteps. I don't know if this is nitpicking, but I'm only nitpicking this because I recently filmed something where I was in the room for post sound effects, and we were trying to match up the footsteps with the crunching of the leaves, and I was very particular about it. I was like, they got to match or it's going to look weird. There were a lot of times in this film where his footfalls did not match with the sound effect, and it pissed me off. I don't know how you miss that. The ending And I'm not going to get too many spoilers here, obviously, but the ending was, again, very boring. Way too long and boring. We aren't with the killer at that point. We're with the final girl and a lady, and they're talking. And this lady is giving a long-winded speech about what this movie... She's basically giving reason to the film. Reason and meaning to the film by giving this like slightly vague story, but really at the same time is hitting you on the nose saying like, this is what it means. The tension was there sometimes. I'm not gonna sit here and say there was no tension with the boring parts like walking around or him going underwater. Like that was really cool at one point. That tension was crazy. And at the end there was tension there, but it just lasted way too long that the tension kind of just overstayed its welcome. And I was like, this is enough. They've already driven so far that there's no way this tension even makes sense anymore. I was kind of like let down by the ending, to be honest. I appreciate this film for trying to capture the campiness of the 80s and late 70s slasher flicks. It got so many things right. It really did. It had the stupid group of teens, the cheesy dialogue and acting. It had a very flimsy, mystical plot, and the setting of being in the woods. You didn't damn a film for having those things in that type of film because it added to the campiness. It added to the cheesiness because of the tone that movie had. Somehow this movie had all that stuff, but the tone wasn't cheesy or campy. The tone was serious. So by having all of that stuff in a movie that wasn't delivering the camp, all of that stuff comes off as bad rather than campy.
I know what you're trying to say.
It was really a balanced film for me. Like, I liked a lot of it, but there was a lot of it where I was like, well, could have been better. I'm going to give this a generous 6 out of 10. I was sitting at a 5, honestly, when I initially finished the film, but it's one of those things where I thought about it and all those kills and how impressive that this movie got made and the mark that it's making, and I had to give it another point for just being what it is. Yeah, so 6 out of 10. Love you, everyone.
Oh, yeah, get him, crew. I fucking loved this movie.
No, what? Really?
Dude, I fucking loved this movie. You missed the mark completely. Well, not missed the mark, but like if you didn't see the levity and the funny campiness that was littered throughout this movie, I think you missed it. There were so many little moments of absolute, not levity's the wrong word, but kind of. It dared to be different, and I think it hit the mark almost across the board. I don't understand personally what people expected. Like, it's from the killer's perspective. Mm-hmm. To me, it's absolutely no surprise that in between kills, what he's doing is walking to the next kill. What else? Like, do you want to see him go out on a date? Do you want to see him do a little dance, play some video games?
No.
What's he going to do? That is a day in his life.
I understand that, yeah, we're going to be with him walking through the woods, sure, but it's not entertaining.
Yes, it is.
How?
It was entertaining. In between absolutely gorgeous kills, the movie took you all the way to this crazy high, and then it brought you right back down for a haunting, tranquil, refreshing cool down period of just seeing this guy with the graphic matches of him walking. Never once did I find the pacing of this movie an issue. I was always on board.
I'm so glad you liked it.
I loved it. I think the cinematography was stunning. I think the use of 4:3 ratio or whatever it's called, like you said, it gave it a certain retro feel, but it also gave you like a confined feel too, which I think the movie was kind of delivering too. Like you're out in the woods, you're trapped. And I think the 4:3 kind of helped in that nature too. I think the practical effects obviously were glorious and gory. And even aside, just the practical effects that weren't the gore were really well done too. Not having any music was a perfect choice because it leaves you feeling so isolated and uncomfortable, and there is no soundtrack in real life. And that was the point of this movie, was a very real feel. I just love the idea that like we get to watch his journey up to killing someone, because in these sorts of movies, you only ever see the end result. You didn't know when he was going to get them because you were with him the whole time. It was, I don't know, it was cool. Yeah, the choice to do a movie in the perspective, air quotes, of the killer, I think it was excellent. It made the whole thing feel like he was the only force out there that mattered to you as the viewer. Like all of these characters that were littered in were just fodder. They were just there to die. They didn't matter. There was no development. And then Awesome ending. Incredible ending.
What?
It just leaves you waiting and wanting for something to happen, because all of these movies, in the middle of, oh, they're finally safe, they're driving away, the killer jumps out and it freaks you out. And the whole time you're like, wait, but this movie's in his perspective. Did he sneak into the back of the truck? When's he going to jump out? Is he hanging on to the bottom of it? What's going on? And then it just ends.
That's not...
It's an incredible psych out. If I wanted to watch the killer jump out at the last second, I'd watch Hatchet for the 73rd time. They decided to do something different, and I wanted something different, and they did it. I was grasping at, what are they going to do? How is this still in his perspective? And then it's just like, psych, it wasn't, you idiots. And I loved that. I got one downside. It was just the exposition and kind of like the hand holding of delivering the story. I get we needed at least one scene with these characters maybe, but I didn't care about going around the campfire and having them all tell a story like it was Are You Afraid of the Dark? But other than that, it was gory, it was intense, it was funny, and it was the best slasher I've seen in years. I gave it 9 out of 10. Wow. So all of Derek's crew, friends, we can hang out.
Nah, you're just saying that because you want to make friends.
Just appreciate the fact that it was different. That alone, it took so many risks to be so creative and outside the box, and it worked across the board.
That was one of my goods, that it was different.
Hey, you out there, have you seen In a Violent Nature? Did you watch it? Did you love it? Did you hate it? What side are you on? Because personally, I haven't seen any average. Except for Derek now, I guess, although he was a little above average maybe. And we'll reply to all your comments, we'll discuss, we'll have a blast. Come on back next week. We're going to kind of keep a horror theme going, I suppose, and we're going to do A Quiet Place Day 1.
Yes, I'm excited for the cat in this movie.
Honestly, thank you all for coming by. If you're a first-time viewer, if you're a 25th time viewer, or you've been here since the beginning, we love you, we appreciate you. We want to keep doing this. So to do that, you need to keep watching movies.